I think we're okay. All right. Good. Okay. The chair shall bring to order the Monday, November 12th, 2018 Single Family Design Board. Is there any member of the audience wishing to address the board on any item not on today's agenda? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of the minutes of our October 29th meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's go through each item, see if there's any corrections. Let's see. Number 1, 945 Arbolado Road. Number 2, 3315 Los Pinos Drive. Item number 3, 845 Sea Ranch Drive.
I don't think it was in this agenda.
Item number 4, 113 Santa Rosa Place. Item number 5, 1206 Harbor Hills Drive. Item number 6, 2414 Santa Barbara Street. Okay. And then also recall we did appoint a subcommittee under item E. It's on the attachment sheet also. Okay, so there are 3 of you that sit on that committee. Okay. All right, let's take a roll call. Or excuse me, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Any further questions on the 29th agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so carried. I forgot to ask for a roll call.
Lisa, are you abstaining on that last vote for that last meeting on the 29th? Okay, yes. 1 abstention.
Which item?
For the minutes of the October 29th. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, Chair Sweeney,
here.
Vice Chair Miller,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
Board Member James,
Here.
Board Member Morticia,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, now let's go to approval of minutes for consent calendar, November 5th. Mr. Ing.
Okay, consent calendar minutes for November 5th are as follows. Item A, 49 Cedar Lane.
Comment about that? Or should
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, this was the project that was the standing metal seam roof that came before the full board. And
It came before the full board, and one of the requirements we made was that the seams on the ridge and in the ridge detail be thinner. The flashing.
Right.
He could not do that. The manufacturer does not make a thinner flashing because it's designed that width because it's part of the venting of the attic space.
And he didn't listen to what we told him. Go find a system that can get the venting done properly, period.
Yeah. So he brought it. His argument was there is nothing in the market that exists, and so we approved it. But it's been bothering me.
No,
Yeah.
that's a poor excuse. He could have mechanically vented it in some other fashion. He was trying to buy it in a single system from a single vendor. And I told him when he was sitting here, he needed to find a different way to vent the roof, period.
Well, the reason I'm putting this on the public is that's something for us to learn, and I think it's important because
So
I was kind of...
He ran right over you.
Yeah. Okay, that was my comment. Because I felt that way too after I left thinking about it.
The challenge you have is you have an applicant come in and say, look, that's the only thing I can find. Or it's the only thing a manufacturer. Well, that's not the case. I've been in this business long enough to know that there are other alternatives, there are other manufacturers, there are other sources, and there's another way to achieve the same purpose. He could have vented the roof differently. So you have to be, if there's an aesthetic issue that you're very concerned about, you have to hold your ground. And you have to have them prove that there is absolutely no other way. Just for them to sit there and simply say, the guy I'm buying it from doesn't make it that way, doesn't, in my view, hold water. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, so the item A, 49 Cedar Lane, that received final approval as submitted. Item B, 945 Arbolado Road, that received final approval as submitted. Item C, 3315 Los Pinos Drive, that received final approval as submitted. Item D, 717 Western Avenue, that received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item E, 1729 Hillcrest Road, that received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item F, 1119 Harbor Hills Lane, that was continued 1 week with comments. Item G, 1333 Santa Teresita Drive, that was continued indefinitely to consent. Item H, 80 Chase Drive, that project received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item I, 3223 Vista Arroyo, that was continued 1 week to the full board. Item J, 525 Scenic Drive, that project was continued indefinitely to consent. And lastly, item K, 881 Paseo Ferrello, that project received final approval as submitted. Items A through K were reviewed by Vice Chair Miller and Board Member Richards.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion?
Do I have a second?
My second.
Okay, do we have questions? I do have a question because I saw several pieces of correspondence come in concerning item K, 881 Paseo Ferrello, about the color of the
Yes.
house. How was that resolved?
They came with a toned down gray color with a matching trim color. A neighbor did show up and he had a list, and he said that now that I see the new color, I'm very happy, and he'll make sure that the neighbors find out, because he was basing his correspondence on the colors that we saw, because he said the black is horrible.
Okay.
And they're not doing black, they're doing a battleship gray, but it's a much better look than what it was before.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he was happy with it.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Let's go to the consent calendar for this morning, November 12th. Mr. Ing.
Okay, consent calendar for November 12th are as follows. Item A, 1119 Harbor Hills Lane. This project received project design approval and final approval with a condition. Item B, 1448 Jesucita Lane. This project received approval of the review after final as submitted. Item C, 1333 Santa Teresita Drive. This project received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item D, 1669 Las Canoas Road. This project received or was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer for a return of consent with comments as noted. Item E, 525 Scenic Drive. This project received project design approval and was continued indefinitely to consent. And items A through E were reviewed by Vice Chair Miller and Board Member Richards.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
And
we
I
the
have
first,
a
second.
comment.
Yes, comments.
On item number D, 1669 Las Canoas, this is an interesting study because the AUD or ADU project was a very beautiful style, but it wasn't of the existing style, and the only thing I could comment was the small garage that was behind. But this is one of those situations where I couldn't comment on the plate height, I couldn't comment on the materials, and I couldn't comment anything on the AUD because it was an ADU. Only thing I could comment on was the garage.
Okay, and what the comment you were able to make was
To lower the plate height, because all the plate heights were 10 and 12 feet high
on the garage.
on the garage.
And that was what it was here for?
Yeah, no, yes. Well, I had.
Just the garage?
Just the garage,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So it was only before our review board, just for the garage?
Exactly.
And let's see, I did have a question on item B because the review after final had a very lengthy description. Was that of any big issue or?
Oh, it was a beautiful Mediterranean-style home, and I looked at the changes that she was made, and they were very appropriate. For me, my comment was it had this odd 70s look to it, and she was making it closer to look like something G.W. Smith did as opposed to something done in the 70s.
Okay,
So I felt pretty comfortable about it.
thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, let's go to announcements. Mr. Ing, do you have probably a couple, I'm sure?
The only announcement I have today is that item number 5, that's 410 East Arriaga Street, that will not be heard today, hence the really short time allotted to it. That's been referred to the Historic Landmarks Commission for review, and the architect is still working with some, responding to some staff corrections. So anyways, we won't be reviewing that today.
So will it remain there, or it's just going to find out if it's significant of anything?
No, it will be reviewed by the Historic Landmarks Commission. It is eligible to be a structure of merit.
So more than likely, it won't be coming back.
It will not come back to
Okay.
the Single-Family Design Board.
Okay. And then other announcements. You have given us, I think, maybe you haven't seen this. This is the assignments for a consent calendar. And so does that start in January?
I apologize, I have not seen this yet. In the past, we have done quarterly rotations, so yes, if we're following that, we will have new consent calendar reviewers come January.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's me and, is it Lisa?
Well, wait a minute.
January?
I'm confused. This is current. This is current. This is like an updated, this has, we're not, because Robert and
Yeah,
I.
you'll finish through the end of the year.
Right,
And then there's new assignments starting January.
correct.
So
But
I'm
that's-
reading this as,
Present.
Oh, okay.
so I will start in January, and I assume Lisa will start, because we've done it together before. Is that correct?
Who is doing it now? Who is?
Me and Robert.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's me and Lisa, that's why I was asking.
Because last time it was Joe and I, so
Yeah.
now it's you and
Yeah, I think. Is somebody going to confirm that so we know what we're supposed to be doing?
This, I think, adds more
I'm the
confusion.
alternate. I'm the alternate.
Okay, just so that's clear, so that the first meeting in January, we're doing what we're supposed to do. Okay, and then standing, we do have two standing committees. ADU, we have not, Brian and I have not met on that subject. We do have a Glare and Reflective Issues Subcommittee. There were 3 that volunteered to be on that committee. Have you all met yet?
No, but I have a
Okay.
question. Do you want
Yes.
to be on that committee?
No, this is appropriate. You only need 3. If you get to 4, then it gets too big.
Okay.
So as I think shared with you last time, you might want to get together with David and Irma and figure out how you should proceed, what background information you need to have, when do you want to meet, and when do you set some deadlines for reporting back to the full board.
And I would appreciate you write down your thoughts as well, so I could have them for our
Okay?
meeting.
Okay. Anything else on subcommittees? And then we also got today the calendar for next year.
Great.
So if you'll add that to your personal calendars,
Time flies.
that will be helpful. Anything else? David? Or Kathleen?
Oh, and I believe, let's see, Vice Chair Miller will be stepping down
Oh,
from.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I forgot that. And I will be stepping down on item, where is it?
The Vice Chair Miller will be stepping down from item 41335 Mission Ridge Road, and Chair Sweeney will be stepping down from the last item, item 62414 Santa Barbara Street.
Oh, okay. It's not showing up on the copy I have. That's why I couldn't see it. Yes, I'll be stepping down from item 6.
And any other?
Anyone else need to
abstentions
recuse
or
themselves
Item
from
6,
anything?
I don't have an item 6. What am I looking at?
Yeah, these don't have item 6 on it. That's okay. but somebody will need item 6 when it gets here to read it. Okay. So if Kathleen or somebody can get item 6 here before we get to that item, that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, anything else?
No, that's all.
That's it. Okay, anybody else from the board? No? All right, then let's go to our first item, which is a new item, 8982 Camano Road. Camano
The
Road.
minutes of Dr.
Emino.
Camino.
Yeah.
Shows how long I've lived in Santa Barbara. Who's here for that? Yes, go come forward, please. Do you have a set of drawings?
Yes.
Okay. Is it the same that you've already submitted?
Can I, no, I'll stay. I'm not going there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you'll need to come and speak into one of these microphones. This is being recorded, you're on television.
Okay,
Okay, so if you could share your name for the record, please.
I'm Robert Heckel.
Okay, and because this is a new project, I will read into the record the project description. This is a proposal for an exterior remodel of an existing 2,876 square foot single-family dwelling with a 365 square foot detached two-car garage in the Hillside Design District. Alterations include replacing windows and doors, replacing wood siding with stucco, new paint color, replacing a screen wall in the front yard, and a new asphalt shingle roof. No new square footage is proposed to the dwelling. The project is here for project design approval. So if you'll share with us what you're doing, please.
Okay, well, this house was built in 1955, it's a ranch house, and it's had a few additions. In the mid-'80s, there were a lot of Japanese features added to the house, and none were maintained, so 30 years later, they're all decayed, termite-ridden, and because it's a high fire zone, very dangerous. So anyway, in thinking of remodeling this house, the idea was to take that wood stuff off and to do it in stucco. The house is in generally below average condition, so it needed a new roof. The siding on the house was also decayed and not suitable for high fire. It has a deck with a worn elastomeric coat, which needs something different. So the idea there was to put like a epi-wood surface because that's fire resistant. The roof is basically a asphalt shingle replacement. Because the house, if you can,
So if you, what would be most helpful if you can show us photographs and then show us what you're proposing on the
Okay.
elevations on your drawings?
so if you go by the house, you'll see that it's down a slope. It's very heavily wooded, so you pretty much don't notice it until you pass it at its driveway. And the salient features of the house, at least from the street, are the roof, the wall that's in front of it, and the driveway and garage. So when you look at the plans, you'll notice that the elevations are not particularly attractive on the street face. But this wall is just within anywhere from 15 to 20 feet of the courtyard to like 6 feet. So you really can't see the facade from the street or even from the house. You look at the house as you go through these little spaces on the front. So it's a house that has a view. Everything is oriented to the back. And here you can see the Japanese fence, which is basically a 2x4 structure that's very worn. So that will be replaced with a stuccoed wall and of a little bit shorter height.
And can you show us on a site plan where that is, please?
Sure. So here's the street. Here's Camino, Alameda Padre Serra. It's right at the intersection. The view is in this direction towards the south. So here's the deck I was speaking about. And here's the front of the house with this wall in front of it. or currently a fence. So the concept is to convert that into a wall on top of that stone base. It's basically a simple stucco wall with no detail particularly.
So this stone base right here that we're looking at right there,
Yes,
does that remain?
yes.
Okay, and that, does that go all the way up?
What happens is, this was built, I'm not sure when. I'm going to say when they built the fence in the
Okay.
1980s. So that goes up to here, this point. Then continuing there are those stone railings that are all through the neighborhood, the historic
Okay,
ones.
so those are altar railings that go on away from here to there.
Yeah, they just keep going down the street, so those aren't touched.
Okay.
So here's a facade with a stepped stucco wall. This is kind of like what you see all over town, like on the Missions, except it's a little bit more modern because the base isn't irregular. We have some screened areas on the facade. Currently, there are wood screens on the facade, which again are flammable. And I'm hoping that I don't need this at all. It's up to the electric company because they're basically meters and we have to get their permission to move them
That are behind this screen.
behind the screen. So currently, because of the zone, I see those as laser cut steel, sort of in a mid-century.
Are they
Design.
louvers or? they
No, they're
screen?
not louvers, they're
Screen,
a screen,
okay.
yeah.
So this is all going to be stucco.
Right.
What is that material here?
That is, we can't use wood, or I don't think we should use wood. So what I was thinking there is, we would have a block wall, but we would put wood tile on it. So if you've actually seen wood tile on a facade, it's actually pretty convincing, and it doesn't burn, obviously.
And is that the same over here?
Yes.
Okay. That's stucco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this window remains, that window remains, this is new. This
Yes.
is,
That's new.
that's new, this goes away.
Mm-hmm.
That's there, and that goes away.
Right.
Okay,
And the only portion of this you would actually see would be probably from about here down,
Okay.
because everything else is behind the wall. And the garage is, instead of being wood, is going to be stucco. Same reason. And we'll have a more mid-century style design garage door.
and
So
is that,
those are windows.
these are glazed,
Yes,
so it's this guy,
right.
okay? Right,
Replacing the circular window?
I'm sorry?
Replacing the circular window?
Yes, it's, well, you can see it's a Japanese effect. It's single pane, so it's not going to meet Title 24. And somebody sprayed something on the surface to make it more obscure, so it's basically not usable any longer. So it's also decayed, and it just, it's not really mid-century.
okay, so you're keeping the deck as is,
I'm keeping the deck
with the
as
exception of the
is.
railings.
That's right, the railings are changing.
Okay, and so you're going to cable rail
Cable rail.
here, here, those pilasters, what happens to those?
Those are all decayed, so those have to be cut off.
And so is that being replaced by a steel post?
These are going to be 6x6 posts, I believe.
Just
Once
says
the
new
engineer,
post.
yeah, once the engineer gets done with it, they're probably going to be 6x6.
So is it a steel exposed post?
It's wood.
It's a wood post?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then,
The sides are basically flat and uninteresting,
so
except
you're going to
that,
go to a new window here?
right, currently there's a large glass block
Okay.
window over the tub, so that's just going to be made into smaller.
And this screen is going to be a screen, what's that made of? What does that look like?
That's also going to be a laser cut steel on the design. Currently, there was a wood frame reed screen, so that was not a great idea.
Okay, and then down here, we're going to a new window here.
Mm-hmm.
That window remains. You're getting a new skylight,
Yes, the roof,
replacing the old one.
yeah, the roof currently has 14 solitudes on it. Well, you can see them from the site plan, but I think you can get there you go. When you look down the driveway, you can see it's nothing but these things.
Okay.
So those are all being removed.
Okay.
This chimney is being removed because the fireplace is being removed.
Okay.
And then the skylights, which are currently fiberglass bubble skylight, are being replaced with flat glass where there are any.
Okay.
And then the vents that are on the facade that you see from the street, those are all going on the backside, like a kitchen vent, so.
And you have a floor plan?
This doesn't have a change in floor plan, so I don't think it was required, but I do have one if you want to take a
Well,
look.
we're just trying to understand, ultimately, you're going to need a floor plan to file this for the building department, because you're going to have to indicate where new windows are and new existing windows remain. Okay, so this is where all the windows are changed.
That's where all the windows are. They're in the same opening space, basically.
I
It's just the
understand, but-
materials changed, yeah.
You need a complete set of drawings when you come here. That includes the floor plan. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, is there any exterior lighting?
We're probably going
Either on
to,
the building or in the landscaping?
it's going to be in the same place on the house. It's just a matter of changing the fixtures to something else.
Know what those are going to look like yet? All right, and that's it? Okay, so before we go to questions and comments from the board, the chair will open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the project, come forward. And Mr. Ing, do we have any written correspondence?
No, we do not.
Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa.
Can you explain how the new stucco wall is going to go on, what did you say, on top of the existing stone? How that,
How's it going to work?
yeah, how that's going to work? And then also, it looks like that's an 8-foot wall, and wondering about the height of that. So,
It's 6
one of
feet
it.
high, currently it's 8 feet high, the wood wall, the wood fence. So the new.
We're going to need, sir, this is on television. You're in a public hearing, so you need to kind of stick to that
Yeah, you can
microphone.
answer
And show
there.
Right here,
Okay.
show right here.
So what we're going to do is lower this structure to about 6 feet, and then it's going to step up.
Step up,
It's 6
okay.
feet above the stone base.
And are you, I guess your question, Lisa, if I think I heard you correctly, are you stuccoing this stone?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And originally, I was thinking maybe this wall could be stuccoed as a wood stucco wall, but we couldn't figure out a way to keep the base so that it would not decay the wood, so water could get out. So this wall is really going to have to be a block wall and then plastered.
Okay. That answer your question?
More or less, it shows here, though, outline of new wall, top of wall 8 foot.
Which sheet are you looking at?
I'm looking at north elevation proposed A2,
Yeah,
number 3 down in the left,
here.
where there's the dashed outline of new wall.
So he's saying at some point, the highest point is 8 feet?
Oh, that's what it says here.
Okay. Part of the challenge here is this drawing doesn't quite show what's happening here. The grade appears to go like that.
Well, here we go.
Yeah,
Here's
it's
what
up
we've
there.
got. So we've got 6
He's
foot.
showing this from the finished floor line. You see what's going on there? So if you look at
Yes.
elevation 2, that's how it really looks from the driveway. So there's
Okay.
stucco and then this existing stone wall. What he chose to indicate on elevation 3 is just where it sits with a relationship to the finished floor line.
Okay, and I guess I'm curious how you're going to anchor a 6-foot high stucco wall to, what sort of integrity does that little rock?
So ultimately,
rock wall
I'm
have?
assuming
We
we're
need a
going to,
detail, maybe.
we're going to see a detail. This is the existing stone wall, that's the driveway, like this. That has some whatever, and so we're either going to see a concrete block wall coming up like that with rebar in it, and then
you
it
go.
plastered, whatever. So somehow we'll see a detail when he comes back. Okay? Any other
That's
questions?
exactly it.
Other questions? Question on, so you're proposing no work on the existing driveway. So the driveway is going to remain what it is today, correct?
No. The driveway's in really poor condition, so investigating that a little further, it really doesn't make sense to replace it with asphalt. So right now I'm looking at, do I want to do pavers? Do I want to do a chip seal pebble?
The reason we ask is that also comes under our purview.
Sure.
And how you treat this will dictate whether or not you have to deal with the stormwater management requirements. Okay, so if this becomes non-permeable, that's a different application versus permeable paving. So you need to work that out
Okay.
before you come
If it-
back.
Let me ask this question if you can answer it. So if the square footage of the driveway is
Over 500
equal,
square feet,
even though it's the same as prior?
as I understand it. That's why you need to work with staff to get that worked out. But whatever, if you choose to change the material, then that comes under our review.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, other questions? Oh, and I've got lighting. So you indicated there is existing lighting which will show up at some point on these elevations if you're only lighting from the building. So one of the other things we'll want to see is what that light fixture looks like. And it has to meet dark sky compliance.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Is there going to be any changes in the landscape as part of your project?
Yes. Right now, I'm just going to clean it up, and we're working on a design. But I can't, mostly it's going to be concentrated in this courtyard as you come down the driveway. This is, it has some paths that are going to get new gravel, but I don't have that accomplished yet.
So again, if you're proposing new landscaping, then it has to be reviewed by this board.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to comments. The applicant's requesting project design approval.
Well, only comment I have is, other than the lack of floor plan, I think it's an improvement. So I could support the direction you're going.
I tend to agree, but there's not sufficient information here to get him to, in my view, get him to project design approval.
Yeah.
Because we're missing the landscape, a concept landscape plan, we're missing a decision on the driveway, we're missing a decision on the lighting. So there's a few things, and including making sure there's a floor plan on this set of drawings. So there's some stuff we've got to have. There is actually a criteria. I should keep this out. There is a criteria for what you have to have when you file drawings with this board. Got where that list is. So if you'll re-review those to make sure you've got all those items on these sheets, then we can kind of move your project along. That's why so work with staff to make sure you've got a set of drawings that complies with what we require to review. Okay? That will kind of move you faster through the system. Okay? Any other comments? Then the chair would look for a motion or direction to the applicant. When ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to continue the project before the full board with the following comments. We appreciate the direction the applicant is going and support what changes you have done so far, but we would like to see a more complete set of drawings that include a floor plan. We'd like to see your light fixtures and where they'd be located. We'd like to see material and work out your storm management program with your driveway. A detail of how the wall's going to be connected to the existing wall system in the front of the house.
And any landscape plan.
And a landscape plan. Now, do we want a full landscape plan or just a?
Just where he proposes to do landscape.
Okay, yeah, a landscape plan that shows where you're going to be doing changes to the, and then clarify, distinguish between what's existing and changed on the plan so that it's clearly understandable.
Okay.
Okay?
That's my
That's the
motion.
motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
I second that.
Okay. Is there further discussion to the motion? Mr. Ing.
Miller, is that indefinite continuance or 2-week continuance?
2 weeks or indefinite?
2 weeks?
2 weeks?
Okay, it's 2 weeks to the motion. Any further comments, questions to the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay. Let's go to 3223 Vista Arroyo. Okay. This is a continued item. The project is here for a second concept review. Project was referred from the consent calendar November 5th, 2018. Mr. Thompson, if you could read into the record your name for the record, please.
This is the proper microphone.
Yes. Yes, the one with the green light on.
My name is Lawrence Thompson, architect. Represent Mr. and Mrs. David Murchison.
Okay, thank you. So this is a second concept review. It was sent to us from consent calendar, so do we have any specific comments from consent of why you?
Yeah, I felt that the addition was a little too, a little more complicated than just consent, and I wanted a little bigger design base to review the front of the house.
Okay.
It's a high visual impact, so I think it would be better to have a full board review.
Okay. All right. With that, then I'm going to have Mr. Thompson share with us what the project's about.
We have some photographs that are important here. But just while he's getting those, this photograph gives you the appearance of the house from the street. There's a wall. The only place you can see through to the house is this gated driveway. And all of these photographs were not available before. And across the street is a house that has a similar tower. And the owners like this effect. Seems to be on the street. It's actually bigger in plan and similar height and everything else. So it's as if we've already set, and obviously, I assume it was approved. So what you see when you get through the gates is this photograph over here, and you see there's a garage with a high arched window and a long, rather barracks-like flat roof or slope roof going all the way back. And as if you really knew where the entry was, it's not too apparent. As you look away from the entry, which is basically over at the end of this roof, and there's more roof that goes beyond this on the picture here. If you look away from the entry to the north, you can see, just as you see here, that there's total screening from the street, for what it's worth. And then as you look down the driveway, this is the garage and the west side of the house for reference. So obviously the idea was to somehow get it, rather than having just one gable here, to have some balancing element on the other side of the building that would also call off the fact that that was the entry. That's where you should go. And it's probably, it's not as high as the one across the street, and it's all open. It isn't a full, there's no occupancy, no habitable space inside. So it's a kind of a piece of joy. We're just having some kind of a improvement of the front of the building, which cannot be seen from the street. It's like the house across the way, and adds a little character. And I think there's about 19 feet there or so height, and it seems to bring the whole front of the building to life. Gives it a little bit of something to be interested in. And we respect the archway module that existed. There was an existing archway here. In fact, there are arches on the side, as you can see in this drawing here, and that is repeated as well, so that it continues the existing archway layout. And I think it's not a very complicated project, but it was one that really invited something a little more interesting, a little more evocative than just a little box-like cover.
Okay. So the project is basically this. That's what
It's
we're
all we have is just this. There's no change in landscaping. And I have to confess, there would be a light here and a light there, but what you see on the outside are two coach lights at the two columns on each side of the opening.
Okay.
That's it, though. I know it's just this one area.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the project? David, did we get any correspondence?
No, we did not.
Okay, then the chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions.
The entry was just that, off the main wall, just that indentation there, the entry where you stood.
The entry, this is the
Previous.
existing column that's there now.
Okay, there was,
It is, that's what's there, and
That's what we see right
that's
here.
what you see on the elevations.
was there a roof over that before?
Yes, this roof continues all the way across.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
The roof is just straight,
So we-
one fascia all the way
This goes all
across.
the way across.
One fascia.
So we're-
And there were two columns right here, looks like.
So we're right into the module, so to speak, of that entryway. We would be taking out the roof above that area that exists now to create the open space that goes
So
up.
there's a break in the big roof. That break is right here?
Right,
Okay.
that's
And
it.
so that corner right now is somewhere right in here, correct?
Oh,
Okay. So this eave is in front of that eave, correct?
Couple of feet in
So if
front
I
of
look
theirs.
at, if I look at a roof plan, I would see some kind of eave line up here, correct? And then it bumped out to come
It's
over
all the
here.
way across, yeah.
So what I don't see, just kind of interrupting your question, but I
I'm
think I
glad
know where
you're
you're going.
explaining
Is-
it better than I
Is,
could.
is there a column going
There's
to
a
remain?
column there, yes.
That's going to remain.
Right,
Okay, and then this piece of the roof will remain.
yes,
Okay, so that's going to be set back, whatever that is.
it's existing.
It's existing, so that's back.
There's another little column over here.
Right, so that's back 6, 7 feet. Okay, so that goes here. So that's remaining, engages this new element here.
Right.
That goes away.
Right.
This remains here. About how far is that in front? What's the overhang?
About 2 feet or less.
So it's
Yes.
about here, okay.
Was this a porch to the right of the front door, as we face the front door, to the right of the front door? Is that a part of the porch before?
No, there's just planting there.
Just
I mean,
planting.
This area here is all
Yes.
just planting.
Just planting, okay.
Is that going to
Remain
remain?
as-
It's gonna
remain as- as
planted?
it is.
Okay. Okay. And that's north, so that's not going to get a lot of light.
North is
This way.
towards you.
Yeah, so this is not going to get a lot of light.
No.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Lisa?
I unfortunately did not get out there. Can you tell me the nearest cross street? Is it Yankee Farm or is it
So Yankee Farm onto
Braemar?
Cliff Drive or
I
whatever
know, okay.
it's been renamed as.
That's-
Okay. Okay. Other questions?
What is a walkway to the front door? Is that concrete
There's a
or
picture,
is that what this is?
actually, that's a walkway that goes to the gazebo, not to the entry. If we look, I'm looking upside down now, but if we look at this garage west, there's like a stone path walkway that undulates like this over from the side here. It's very informal. That all stays the same.
Okay. Other questions? Just one, I just happened to, so are you thinking there'll be a chandelier of some sort?
That was the idea, that there might be a chandelier up there.
Okay, other questions? Okay, if not, let's go to comments.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess this arch thing in the, I think it should be more appropriate like that, and then have the light outside here, other than, because it just,
To make it wider, the opening, you're saying?
not the opening wire, but this pilaster, follow the arch so they match, rather than having it, the pilaster on the bottom be thicker than the top part. That to me kind of looks strange to me. I mean, this is bad drafting here, but something like that. if you were going to do that, so that all, and then you have your light out here. The other thing that struck me too that I was uncomfortable with is down here, this pilaster, the line should match, so this sticks out like that.
So it springs from here.
Yeah, so it's the spring line matches the bottom.
Traditionally, you'd see the spring line
Yeah.
come from there, okay.
So that was one of the things that stuck out for me was the detailing was kind of strange to me. Also, I think would also look nice would be have a third ridge beam. So anyway, those are my comments.
Other comments? I think the thing that's bothering me is the proportion,
In what sense?
in the sense that it's too high. It's with relationship to the other pieces, it doesn't quite look right. It's either, it's like I want to take this and shove it down a few more feet so that, I don't mind, I see where Brian's coming from. You could either have it relief like, whoops, over here, so that it springs from the same element. That might look okay, but I think what I'm looking at is an element that drops down. And that's what's bothering me. I'm initially just looking at that alone, I didn't see this. I didn't know how it would engage this roof back here, but it doesn't. So you'd think even if you're free from that, I think dropping that down a bit. So what's bothering me is the general proportions, not the design. I think the design is fine. It's just the proportion of this element. And let this roof come back over here. And then I would eliminate these arches because your emphasis is on this piece of architecture. So let these arches just be straight up. And then the only other concern is I'm assuming that whatever's going to grow under here is going to be a lot in the shade. So those are going to be shade tropicals of some sort, and I'll look to my landscape colleagues to explain that, but because a lot of this is way back and it's facing north, so it's Santa Barbara North light. So I think your general approach is okay, it's just, it's too high. It needs to come down a little bit. The proportions aren't quite right yet. Other comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, then we need an action. Mr. Miller had it brought to the full board because he was uncomfortable of making the assessment with just he and Robert. We can either make comments and directions to the applicant to return back to consent, or we can make directions and comments to the applicant to return to us, or the third option is to approve it as it has been presented for concept. So the chair would look for a motion.
I'd make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to bring it back, not to the full board, back to consent calendar. And with the recommendations that we lower the height of it, the scale of it, and of the entry down your, just bring it down some, but to your, present it to the consent. And I don't mind yeah, that's my motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a second to the motion. Is there further discussion to the motion?
I'd like to add some careful attention to the detailing surrounding the arches as well, and on your detailing around the arch. Also, I'd like to see a call out of the light fixtures that are going to be used.
Okay. So a catalog cut.
Catalog cut, yeah.
design.
I agree with that.
Okay, is that acceptable to maker of the motion?
Acceptable to
Okay.
motion.
Lisa?
Additionally, can you add to show the existing roof overhang on the drawing? And landscaping should be shade tolerant, preferably low water use plants that don't need to be tropical.
Is it
Plenty of-
existing already? That's why I asked what was,
Well, we don't have a photograph of it, so I think if you
Oh,
just get a
show
photograph.
existing landscape.
It's lush.
If you just
He's not
bring
gonna do-
bring a photograph, it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that acceptable to the maker of the motion? Acceptable to the second?
Yeah,
Okay, everyone understand the motion?
yeah.
Any further comments? Hearing no further comments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. We'll see you back at consent calendar. Okay?
I would like to make one comment.
Yes.
That is, I was not notified of the first consent calendar meeting. I had no idea when it was going to occur. I even called on the phone and never got any information back. So this is something got mixed up
Yeah.
along the line. And as the applicant, I think that would be necessary.
I agree with
you. And I apologize, but I don't, the board doesn't have control over all that stuff. The other thing I can tell you is we were right in the middle of switching out staff. But David is at his first meeting.
Could have been a
Second row.
whatever.
Okay.
But I would like to come to the follow-up meeting
Yeah, okay,
for obvious reasons.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next week at 11 o'clock.
Okay, let's go, where are we at? 4:10, we need to take a bit of a break. We're a little ahead of schedule, so let's take a 5-minute break.
We're doing 4.
So we can take a 5-minute break and still be on schedule. Okay, all right, the chair will reconvene the Monday, November 12th, 2018 Single Family Design Board. We're on item number 3, 2530 Mesa School Lane. This is here for project design approval. Project was last reviewed on September 17th, 2018. If you could introduce yourselves for the record, please.
My name is Andrew Vonnegut. I'm one of the 2 owners of the house.
Okay, welcome. Mr. Miller, do we have actions?
Yes.
we took last time, please?
Number 1, provide driveway easement details on the plans. Number 2, provide window and door details on the plans. Number 3, provide lighting details on the plan. Number 4, provide a color materials board. Action taken by Farrell, seconded by Miller. Motion was carried.
Okay, thank you. So if you could share with us how you address those comments, please.
Okay, can I see? Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, we addressed all the written comments. Let me make sure. So the driveway easement. I see. So yeah.
You got to speak into that one.
Make sure you speak into the mic.
And you can use there's a pointer there too, if that helps.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the easement section right here, and then this is the actual driveway for the house. Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Window and door details on the plans. I believe there's window and door schedules. Yeah, so we have window and door schedules labeled.
Okay,
Details.
and the details are where?
What sort of details are you?
How they're built, how they're
How they're built, yeah.
Oh,
Basically, you have details, you're going to have, and I'm sketching to you, this is what they call a sill detail. So
Yeah.
here's the wall, here's the floor, okay? And you'll have a detail here That shows the glass or the window. You have a detail up here at the head, et cetera. So those are the kinds of details
Okay.
that we ultimately will want to see.
Okay.
Okay?
I mean, if you're just taking the window out and putting another window back in, you're not disturbing any of the sills or anything, show that.
Okay, well, we have, they'll all be the same as the existing, so
Okay.
we'll
yeah.
we'll
So-
make that.
And sometimes you can get some of that right off of the manufacturer's catalog.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
The lighting details, and again, I realize now what you're looking for. You're looking for you want to see the actual fixtures, is that?
Yes.
Is that
yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So do we have an idea where they're located at this point?
Floor
Yes,
plan.
they are, they're on it should be on the elevation here. We should have them located here.
Here, here,
Here, and here.
here, okay. And they're going to look similar to this little sketch? or
They'll
you
look
don't-
similar to that little sketch. Yeah.
Right?
Give us a sketch sheet, just a.
Catalog drawing. with the
You want a catalog
catalog.
of those,
Ca-
actually?
catalog
Okay,
cut.
okay.
Needs to go on the drawings.
I thought there was one, let's look on the front page here. We had one of those on there, because we had the vent on there. Vent,
Same thing.
yeah, no, okay, all right, I'll
So you
I'll
just
grab
need to
that.
put a catalog cut on.
Okay.
Right?
And the color material for it, that's right.
Did you have that?
Don't have that, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we addressed all the written ones, I didn't
Okay.
adequately, okay, color material for it.
Okay, so that's what you need.
Okay, I'll provide all that in the next couple of days.
So are there any other changes to the project?
No.
Okay. All right. If you have nothing else to present, then let's go to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the project? Mr. Ing, did we get any written correspondence?
No, we do not.
Okay. And Chair will, seeing no one come forward, the Chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question for east elevation on sheet A6.
6? Okay.
Kind of questioning that upstairs deck roof with guardrail.
Let's see.
What is that material?
This one?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, what's that look like?
Okay, that is existing, and
Oh.
that,
Okay, where's your?
let me see here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's an existing, oh, here it is right here. So this.
So I guess my question is, why didn't you actually draw it the
So
way
it needs, so it needs to be drawn on the drawing.
As it is, okay.
Yeah, dry,
I
because we're visually, we're all.
Impaired.
Yeah.
I think it was just, when the drafter was putting it together, he's focused on the addition and. so I
Okay,
didn't
yeah,
put
no, he
it-
needs to
okay.
draw it the way it is, so we can understand what's going on, okay. All right. Other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, then let's go to comments. Since there's still lacking some details, my sense from the board is that we're probably okay with this, but there's stuff missing. So I might recommend someone make a motion that includes the things that we still need to see, but have this go to consent calendar for project design approval.
We'll make that motion.
Okay?
And the board would like to send this project on to the consent calendar for final approval with the follow.
Time out. For project design approval or final approval? Because either you're going to give it project design approval today with comments, or you're not going to give it project design approval and send it to the consent calendar for project design approval, or you're going to give it project design approval and send it to consent for final.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's what you're doing.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, all right. Just want to
Okay.
make sure clear. So you're giving it project design approval today?
Yes.
Let me have
Okay.
the list of the
no.
list of the white sheet right there, right there. That one.
And with following comments that
One's missing, that's what's missing.
when, thank you, I have written those things down. That when you return, please show us what lighting you plan to use. A catalog cut would be fine. Where it goes on the drawing. We need details or cut sheets for window installation. And we'd like you to draw the deck rails as they show up in reality.
And because you're giving it project design approval, then you need to discuss
The NPO.
neighborhood compatibility,
Okay?
architecture, materials, et cetera, and be fairly specific.
We would like to say that the NPO findings have been met because the project has consistency, and its appearance enhances the scenic character of the city. It's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, uses quality architecture and materials, and follows good neighbor guidelines.
Okay, so that's your motion.
That is my motion.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little timeout before we get a second, so we can practice the issue of really getting the neighborhood compatibility issue that the city staff has been telling us they're going to come and train us on, but let's see if we can get this. So you read the overall compatibility categories, but probably should give some key, and I think, Lisa, you've probably been to this site, you know this street, is that we should probably then give it some descriptive narrative on the compatibility issue, i.e., the materials being used are similar to the homes on either side of the property and across the street. The street tends to be materials using wood siding, asphalt shingle roofs, tends to be low in scale,
Yeah,
et cetera. So you see where I'm
I do.
trying to fine tune that neighborhood compatibility issue.
Can we add that language, or shall I add that language? Yeah, the plate heights are low, which is consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood, and materials are consistent with those in the neighborhood and those of homes adjacent.
Okay, such as the use of asphalt shingle roofs, wood siding, small-scaled openings, and material that connotates a ranch-style or rural placement of architecture that's similar to others on the street. Catch that, Kathleen? So you see how that really ties it down. So if for whatever reason this is, I'm not saying this project will get appealed, but if it gets appealed, then it gets in front of city council, then they kind of know, we went out and actually looked at the street, we know what the street looks like, we know what the materials on that neighborhood, we've defined the neighborhood by that street on Mesa School Lane.
We get more specific than
Exactly.
than this.
Yeah, this is helpful to remind us the category,
Okay.
but specific to that. And the other thing that we probably would put in such a motion is the board has defined this neighborhood as this section of Mesa School Road because we denote that it's different than the homes immediately to the south and to the north because all of those homes were built at separate periods apart as built as tract homes rather than individual homes that show up on this street. So that really then defines the neighborhood in a more succinct way. So council knows we went out and looked at it. We decided this little street is very unique, doesn't have sidewalks, doesn't have curbs and gutters like the immediate streets to either side. So this board has defined the neighborhood. Okay. See, and that's kind of what I think they're going to come and train us to do.
Great.
So that when we look at other neighborhoods, we're the guys that get to decide where the neighborhood, since there is no definitive direction we get from anything else. It's up to us. Okay? Sorry, we're going a little long, but we're going to get you where you need to go. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. There is a second, right? Did we get a second? No, we didn't get a second.
I second
There
that.
was a second? Okay, is there further discussion to the motion? Okay, Kathleen, have you got that sorted out? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. So you can go on to finish your drawings, and then we can go back to consent calendar.
Now, do I submit a full set of drawings, or do I
Full
submit
set
a
of
new
drawings.
supplemental sheet?
Full set of drawings, so you're gonna do all your details, everything else you need to put on these drawings, all that list.
Okay.
And then you can go to consent calendar, you can work with staff to get that accomplished.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Myself for the next project.
Okay? All right. Dave can help you sort out which set of drawings.
Oh, good, okay, I can read this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll take this one.
Okay, well, again, we're a little bit ahead. We have to be 15 minutes in front of the signed time, so we're going to take about a 7-minute break. The chair will bring back to order the Monday, November 12th, 2018 Single Family Design Board. We're on item number 4, 1335 Mission Ridge Road. This is here for a second concept review. I have notes that say no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires staff hearing officer review for requested zoning modifications, and before I continue, staff has reminded me that I need to publicly state that on item number 3, 2530 Mesa School Lane, we gave that project design approval in the motion that was just passed. That approval is subject to a 10-day appeal period. So with that, David, before we get started, so the staff hearing officer action is still to take place, correct?
Yes, we have to refer, the board has to refer it to the staff hearing officer.
Okay, so in essence, the applicant is going to be looking for positive comments in order to go to the staff hearing officer?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have, I think, notes and actions.
Here.
So Robert, can you, well, first, before I do that, I need to have the applicant and present to state their names for the record, please.
Mark Miranda.
Dario Feeney's the owner.
Okay,
Tia Rusendahl.
welcome. Okay, so before I have you present, let's go through what we did last time.
Okay, the motion at the last meeting was to continue this to the full board with the following comments. Number 1, the board has reviewed all sides of the building, modifications and encroachments. 2, the board finds the proposed fountain on the Alameda Padre Serra side to be acceptable. 3, the board finds the proposed first bay window with the fireplace with the 93 square foot public right-of-way encroachment to be questionable. 4, the board finds the proposed second bay window along APS to be acceptable as a true bay window. 5, the board finds the original stone archway and gate perpendicular to APS to be acceptable as proposed. 6, applicant to show on the plans the void beneath the bay window that extends to the ground in preparation for a pending site visit by the board prior to the next review. 7, show on the plans the change to a double hung window on the bay window. 8, change the westerly second and third bay windows with the dissimilar arch beneath to be similar or match each other. 9, the board finds proposed third-story wrought iron Juliet balconies are acceptable. 10, restudy or remove the multi-window odd-shaped nook as is not acceptable as proposed, as it detracts from the continuity of other features on the building. 11, the first floor window on the south side elevation are acceptable. 12, provide details on the plans of the proposed stone wrapping material for underneath the round tower element and along the south side elevation. 13, the board finds 18 inches of steps encroachment into the easterly setback acceptable to remain as existing. 14, provide a landscape plan, hardscape plan, irrigation plan, lighting plan, color and materials board, and details of the proposed trellises. 15, provide compliance with the storm water management program requirements. 16, the board requests that staff arrange a board project site visit prior to the project's next full board review. Action was taken by James, seconded by Farrell. We had 6 in approval of it, and Miller was absent, so the motion carried.
Thank you. So if you could share with us how you address that list, and then anything else you need to share with us.
Correct. On the fountain at the front, it's basically, this This is the bottom floor plan, so you can see the bay window outline here. This is the little dining room nook that's going to get changed on this next sheet here. So the dining room nook will be demoed back to the point where the old wall was, and then we were going to square it off to line up with this point here. And there's like a 25 square foot difference in that. That's going to get added to create this and pull this back. This is the bay window. It's a true bay window. And, well, actually it's going to be just like the other bays on that side when you get to the elevation. This is the second floor. This will be the roof line above that nook. And this is that upper floor. This is the tower element. So when we get to the elevations, where are we? This is the rear, that's the front. So here's the bay, and I made all the windows double hungs, and I matched them all the way around the building. So this one underneath the bay on the south side, and then the one underneath the bay over here will match. And then we made all these windows match each other all the way through. Because this one had an arch on it, and then this one had divided lights at the top like a cross, kind of not quite colonial, but similar. We're going to make them all similar. So here's the bay, the bottom of it. We just took it from the ground, and then we're going to put the stone underneath, just like the stone's already all through here. And then that's the deck encroachment. This would be that roof element. Down here, you asked for this window to be changed as well. So it was a little off center. So we centered it, and it's going to match all the other windows throughout. And that was pretty much it. You know, this arch was acceptable. The one bay encroachment into the right-of-way, right? The one in the living room there was suspect.
The one in the pool was good.
Yeah. Yeah, the small one was acceptable, and then the bigger one was questionable, is what the board had mentioned.
So let's go back.
And then all the trellis elements are the same as they ever were, but they're in here. And then I provided the stone detail right here, which is the way it already is all along the driveway side and underneath. It's basically a 5-inch stone, and then the cap is going to be 7.5, so it'll have like a 2.5-inch reveal. That's what's there under those windows now, and that's what we plan to run all the way around the building.
So the trellis that we saw today, out there, this one,
Right,
is subject to our review because the permit expired?
correct. Yes, everything on the property is subject to
Okay,
review.
so
'cause-
that's under our review.
Right,
So that's that guy. This is where we saw the gravel.
right. And then before there was a fountain proposed in there as well, and then this had a full landscape plan. So the landscape,
So that's not ready.
irrigation and shrimp and everything will come in when we bring in the whole backyard,
Okay, and
because those things don't require modifications.
then the other trellis element you don't have in the drawings yet, the one that's down.
No,
over here.
no, I don't have it.
And the
'cause-
chicken, the chicken enclosure.
And
and
the other
it's-
concrete down here is going to be all part of the future survey that's already happened. It just has to be
Let's,
filled out some more.
okay. I think what I'm going to suggest we do is go sheet by sheet, and then we can kind of sort ourselves out. Okay, is there anything else specifically you need to share at this point?
No, I think that covered it
All right,
as far as the minutes.
okay. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the project? David, did we get any written correspondence?
No, we did not.
Okay, then the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. To make this a little easier, let's do questions and comments on each sheet. If that's okay, then we can kind of keep track of where we are. So for the purposes of this discussion, I think where we are is we don't have sufficient enough information yet for landscaping, stormwater management, et cetera, to even discuss the yard area. We have had a chance now to look at it, so you can kind of see. One of the questions I do have for David is there appears to be a chicken enclosure at the bottom of the site that may or may not have a setback issue. Do we know that at this point, or do you have, where does that stand?
Unfortunately, I'm new to this project, so I'm not familiar with the location of the chicken coop on the site, but that's something that our staff person to the staff hearing
We'll be looking at,
we
correct.
will definitely be looking at
Okay.
to see if it complies or not.
And then the other point of conversation, and you indicated that you haven't had your surveyor get out there and complete all the yard stuff, is whether or not the indication of the waterway that comes across the property is there legally as a part of an easement or not. So that seems to be a question that we need to have answered. I'm assuming we'll have that answered as the civil engineer and the landscape work out the stormwater management plan. It's my understanding that the water passing through the site is different than the water on the site that's subject to the stormwater management plan. So that's why I'm trying to sort out if that water is going through, then that's different than the other actions you have to take care of in terms of the other water on the site. So
Correct.
that's why I'm trying to get that sorted out.
Yeah, we'll do that with the title report and verify the easement.
Okay, so if we don't discuss at this point until we get further information on landscaping, then our comments can remain on the building itself. So maybe the easiest way to do this is to go through the elevations just like we did last time. One
That's
by one.
A8 and A9.
Okay, now I'm gonna keep the last comments in front of me so we don't forget what we did. So we went through, we looked at all the elevations. We said that the fountain was okay. So this guy is okay. The board finds a proposed first bay window, which is it this guy or this
Oh,
guy?
the bay window, this one right here.
This one.
With the fireplace. And that's the arch.
Is the arch, so it's this one right
This
here.
is a small one, that's a true bay.
All right, so that was one we were uncomfortable at the point, but now you've been able to see it.
That's the library.
That's correct.
That's correct, and it's
That one-
before you get into that little arch with the gate in it.
But the library is, the floor goes all the way over. There's no bay window there at all.
Right,
Yeah.
you're right, it's floor area.
So, just to be clear, and again, I'm going to go back to, ultimately, what you're looking for is our comments so that you can get to the,
This is the
so
bay
that you
in
can
the
get to
library.
the
This is the true bay.
staff hearing officer. So, the issue here is making a determination, hopefully today, that we either accept we've seen and what's on the drawings for this addition that's not a bay window, okay, because it goes all the way to the floor, and we need to determine whether that's acceptable or not acceptable. And if it's acceptable, then we need to indicate why, because, David, just to be sure, that's what's got to go to the staff hearing officer, correct?
Yeah, that's a front setback encroachment.
This little portion right here, but beyond this line,
Uh-huh.
is in the front setback. This is the front property line.
Right.
So this is the staff hearing officer. And then everything outside on my side is a Public Works encroachment permit.
And does the Public Works require comments from us?
Correct.
So both actions. Okay, so everyone understand that? When we make a decision on this, that affects how they go back and ask for their modification and Public Works review.
Yeah, everything in the right-of-way requires review and approval by ABR, which.
Okay, so we've already indicated we've accepted this. That's what we said last time, this bay window, okay? So it's this part of the discussion. Okay, so did everybody step that? So at this point, are there questions with regard to this? Okay, so given where I was going to come from, we were going to do questions and comments and then go by each one. So if there are no questions, do we have comments about acceptability of that element that we saw today?
It's indicated that the wall, which is right about here,
Yeah, it's here. It goes like this, and it kind of comes up like that.
comes right about, there's enough for an arch right there.
Yeah, the arch is right here on this element right here.
So the wall has been accepted.
This
Here's-
wall over here, this
yeah,
wall
yeah.
was
But
approved in
this wall here-
1981.
What are you talking about, this wall here?
There's like, the little low,
Those
no,
are
that's,
benches.
that's all part of, that would all have to be part of the Public Works encroachment permit as well, like the stonework that you saw out of there, and then the bench here. All those things are delineated on the survey.
What would be helpful is if we had.
Drew it on it, but that's on the same, that's on that floor, so it should be drawn there.
Well, it's
So
a
it's on
little,
the
it's
site
a little
plan.
difficult, let's see.
It's actually on the survey.
See, it shows there.
This is the planter that you walk by, that's maybe 30 inches high. This is the arch, and then this is a little wall where there's a little bench, and then that's like a boulder. This is the 1981 encroachment permit, that wall that you can't see anything as you're coming this way
So
along.
this is the piece that's the end that.
No, I
right
realize
And this
that.
is the small one.
All of it's behind the approved wall, which is over there.
And that wall goes back up, that wall, that approved wall that you just mentioned, goes all the way along there.
No, the approved wall's right here.
Well, now tell me where it stops.
This is just a curb. It stops right here.
Stops right there.
Yeah,
So
this thing
this wall, you're also asking for,
It's
It's a
like a
planter box.
curb
Yeah,
planter.
it's a
that-
planter
it's
box.
like
So the
this
question,
high.
in this low stone wall,
Trees. in
are
it.
we supposed to be making comments on that?
Yes, everything in the right of way,
Okay.
like these little planters at the front entryway.
All right, and right now, we've approved, not approved, but we said we were in favor of the fountain,
Of the fountain.
which is right
right
where?
here.
Is it back
And
here?
then here's the other bay. The
So is
fountain's
that-
in here. The fountain's not in the right of way. It's in the front setback. It's
So
right
the fountain
here.
is right there, okay. So this little wall, that little wall,
Those
this
are
little
about this
wall,
high.
this little stone wall,
Correct.
that little planter are all part of our discussion. So either we say, that's great, leave it there, or no, it's not, or whatever. So those are the comments we have to make, okay? So on the building plan, it's this element. We are making comments. Right? So it's basically that.
So that's like looking from the street, that's the approved wall right here.
This one.
This one that wraps around. In
it
1981,
stops.
it's like 5 feet
It
high.
stops right on this
Yeah,
right
it
here, right
stops
about
short.
there.
Okay, all right, so the question becomes, is that acceptable, the way it's been built and as we reviewed it today on the site, or is it not?
That's the arch, which you said was okay, or you didn't mind it. That's the bay in question with the arch. And then there's the little bench.
That's the wall you're
With
talking
the
about. That
wall.
little wall is about a foot and a half high, 2 feet. There's a
Yeah.
bench in it.
That's actually another good shot of it right there.
Yeah, the reason I'm questioning this, I'm questioning the fact that the wall that, between this area, that's between the wall and the house, and that's that wall all the way along there has not been approved, which is
Correct, it's
the
a
wall.
planter box, basically.
Well, and let's don't call it a planter box, let's call it a wall. It has not been approved all the way along the street right there until we get to, nothing is approved along here until we get to an area right about here, which was approved.
Yeah, that's
So
about 5
basically,
feet high.
basically, you're asking for an approval for this and the wall there and the steps and anything that's this side of the house, anything north of the house
Correct.
hasn't been approved.
Now, this is a wall that was approved.
So that's that piece.
Yeah, but it only stops right there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which is about right here in the photo, just right out of sight.
Okay. So the rest of this stuff is low walls, that's where you see the hedge. You had a picture here a second ago, that hedge right there. See?
Yeah.
That hedge is in here.
Sorry, I'm blown away. Well, the city will allow a wall that comes right out to the curb.
So it stops beyond probably about the middle of the small bay, as you can see in this photo.
Okay? All right, so the question is that acceptable or not? So that's what we're seeing. This is the edge of that wall. Here's these other walls. In front of that, we have a hedge. Comments? Okay. I think what's bothering me is that there's so much up right on the road. And there isn't that along that part of Mission Ridge Road. And so here's the dilemma. Here's Mission Ridge Road. We have a home that was built way before the zoning laws were put into effect. Okay? So that was there. And then at some point in the 70s, they came along and said, here's all the setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the road right away. Whoops, or like that. And then we have construction that occurred after that put walls out here, retaining walls, a little arch, a gate, a wall over here that apparently has been reviewed and permitted, et cetera. So we got a lot of stuff sitting right up on the road. So the question becomes, is that acceptable on this? Is it compatible with this neighborhood, or is it not compatible with this neighborhood? And that's the finding I think we have to ultimately be charged to make, because if someone were to appeal our decision, they'd want to know, did we find it compatible with the neighborhood, or did we not find it compatible? And if we did or didn't, why? So that's my concern. We got a lot of stuff up on here. So is that okay in this neighborhood, on this road, where there are no sidewalks, there are curbs, there are gutters as you go along this whole section of Mission Ridge Road? There are homes to either side of this property that were built in later years and in other periods of time that were built so that they're down and away from the road, or they're even with the road. I think it's a little further up as you go 2 or 3 houses, homes, and you turn the corner up here. There is a driveway that tilts down a little bit, but there's a big driveway, kind of almost a circular driveway in front of a Spanish roofed home that sits down. The home next door sits down, has a long driveway because that's the one we walked up on. So this little area here is in some way has been developed different than the other properties. So if it's to remain, is that a notion of compatibility with the neighborhood, or is it unique to the neighborhood and should remain? And that's probably the question we need to answer. Comments, Lisa?
I'll make a comment. I've always found it, because of the sandstone nature of all the elements that we're considering, and the existing neighborhood that has, what did you call those walls? The WPA walls?
Some of them may have been built during the WPA period, yes.
Anyway, it's never stuck out to me as incompatible. It's an eclectic property for sure. And there is a variety of architecture along that street. And yes, it is encroaching, but I find that portion supportable.
All right. Anyone else want to express their comments? Okay, if there are no further comments, then let's move to the other elevations. I think those were the only things we had to look at here. Let's go to, let's walk around the other way. Let's go to the west. Which is this one. Okay, so over here,
This is the true bay, that's along.
True Bay,
the
and what did we
driveway.
say?
It said lift it off the ground, so I took it to the bottom of the floor joist, and then I mimicked the two next to it. And we changed these to match
Okay,
each other.
so is this going to have a gentle curve to it, or is it going to be done as you've drawn?
It'll be kind of rounded, but it's going to have the slant on it like this one
Okay,
and
and
this
then
one.
this piece is stucco too?
Yeah, it's about 6 inches, just like this one.
Okay,
And this one just returns straight back. It doesn't have the reveal.
and then are these going to be clad windows? What are those?
Yeah, they're metal clad,
So they're metal clad?
wood interior. We changed them all out to mimic the exact same look and style and proportion.
Okay, and then the roof is the same?
Correct, the roof doesn't change from what you saw at the site visit. And then these two you had us change to mimic each other. And then we're just going to carry the stone stops here now. We're going to carry it along the base now that this gets lifted up.
Okay, and that's the detail you just shared with us a
Right,
minute ago?
correct.
Okay.
It's the same as all this detail here that's there now and wraps around the corner.
All right, and let's see. Third-story Juliet balcony, that's okay. Restudy or remove the multi-windowed odd-shaped nook as it, okay, so that's
That's
this piece.
This is
So-
the new roof as we squared it off. If you look at the floor plan.
So the current corner will end, right now, there's a corner right here. Is that
Correct.
right? And then you've now brought that out so that this is parallel to this
Right.
face.
Yeah, so that's what this little roof is in this line right here.
Okay, and then you're going to take the windows that are in there and pull them forward and place them like this.
Correct.
And then this railing exists, and the other.
It's just strange because it's an oblique angle. That's why you see it
Right,
here.
right. So one of the questions I had as I walked on the site today and actually touched this rail, the building material on this deck is pretty well shot,
Correct.
okay? So, and the anchoring of that railing is questionable.
Suspect, yeah, the
Suspect.
200 pounds of force.
So my question is, and I'm not even sure that the 4-inch sphere rule works.
Right, they're 5-inch and that's
Yeah.
36 inches
So-
from the old days.
So what's your thought about how to address that?
The deck was legal, so we weren't going to touch it.
Right, but the building department's going to come and inspect this, so at some point, are you going to have to come back to us with a new rail and a,
Well, if we have to meet
Correction.
code, then we would plywood it and tough flex it because that would meet the high fire, and then we'd have to hardy the underside of the joist. And then we'd have to put a new railing on it to make it 42 and bring it within code, so.
well, I would suggest that if you're going to go through this process, you might want to get that addressed now.
I think it'd be heavy.
Yep, then you have to come back to us again.
Right now, I mean, it's pretty well, that deck's pretty well shot, but it is heavy timber.
No,
Looks
it's it's steel beams on both sides, and then there's floor joists, and the floor joists
2x12.
also
Yeah,
have.
they're not, you've got to be
Yeah.
6, for heavy timber, you've got to be 6 inches.
We'd have to be.
But the decking doesn't have to be heavy, 6 inches, only.
The decking
only
would
what's
have to be
supporting
like
it.
Trex or Timber Tech specific
it's gotta
types that
be-
meet high fire.
It has to meet fire.
Or we have to tough flex it and just
So
sheet it.
all I'm suggesting
Yeah.
is, if you're going to go through all of this, you probably ought to get this sorted out so that when we
Hit the building department.
hit the final approvals here, you've got it all packaged together. So
Okay,
the
we'll
other
deal with
little
that.
component that you have, that we have to deal with is this corner of the stairwell. There's just a little piece of it that's in the setback. But one of the things that I'm going to stop there and go back just for a second. But I wanted to, where's the scale?
Right here.
So let's get a quarter inch, okay. So one of the things I wanted to check, so we have to make a determination of whether or not this corner is aesthetically appropriate. This would go to the staff hearing officer for the modification to leave it there. So that little corner of the stairwell that comes down, actually I think works like this. The stair comes like that, and that railing we were just looking at comes like that. I think that's what it works. Anyway, what I wanted to check, is in our guidelines. You know, we've talked about this for many, many applications. Our guidelines say second level decks should not exceed 15 feet from the property line.
Not closer.
Or closer, correct. So if we were to do two things, one is say this was appropriate for this little piece that's in the setback, and that the deck is self-appropriate, then we should explain our decision based on the fact that we have a guideline that says we shouldn't approve it that way.
But that deck is the roof of the carport.
Oh, you drive under and then you come around into here. The carport's
I understand all that, but we've had several projects that are the same issue. And our guidelines say not to approve that condition. So all I'm saying is if we do approve it that way, then we need to explain our actions, because it's different than what our guidelines tell us to do. Okay?
Can I make a comment about
Sure,
that? So
absolutely.
if you're looking at having to redo that deck and redo that railing, well, then you might consider bringing it into the guidelines, bringing it in 15 feet from the property line. Something to explore.
I think, I'd have to go back through the archive plans, but the deck was all legal. I'm not sure, like, if the landing was carved out of it and then changed, but, yeah, I think, here's the little piece right here. And the
So-
surveyor didn't give me the other line, but it basically
I think
comes
what
out, goes like
some of
this.
us are saying is we're uncomfortable with that balcony sticking out as opposed to what our guidelines tell us to do, 15 feet. And so if you're going to reconstruct it, you might rethink the shape and location of it.
It's just stuck over just that little bit right there.
Well, no, there's two things going on.
Correct.
There's this little piece here.
That's the landing.
That's the thing that we have to determine whether we accept it or not acceptable for the setback modification.
Yeah.
And the other part
Was
is
15 feet.
the general deck area.
Are we on the questions? Are we
No,
on the
go,
questions?
we're kind of going back and forth. 'cause
Back
there's
and
a
forth.
lot
Can I
to-
ask another question?
No, go ahead.
Carport, both of you mentioned carport. I'm
It's
blown away
underneath-
where the
it's
carport
underneath
is.
the building right here.
Oh, it
on the
is,
basement
there is
floor.
there.
Yeah, there's two spaces right here.
For 2 cars.
For 2 cars.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah, this was all open when you walk by that big arch, and then the other 3 arches are here. This is the carport.
So that's how they meet their 2 covered spaces.
Yeah, okay. I didn't see that, so that's
Well,
my
the
question.
deck's legal. If we just cut off this corner, and then we just shift the balcony or the landing to make it 3 by 3, then we don't need a mod.
Then they don't need to come in front of us. Or don't
For
need-
that.
We
For
need to
that,
be in
for
front of you
that.
no matter
that.
what, but
That.
we don't need to go to the staff hearing officer, but they approved it in 2011.
Yeah. And the reason we're looking at it now is because you have that encroachment, and then we stick our guidelines into it and says you can't be any closer to 15 feet. And
Yeah, I think it was the same rule back then in 2011. That's been part of the guidelines for a while.
Okay.
The permit expired, that's why we're here.
oh, yes, okay. Carport.
This portion right here,
Fresh.
and then this is the nook.
What page are you on, Fred?
A5. Well, I'm gonna add my comment. I would be much more comfortable with this whole thing if the deck
Yeah, we couldn't do that because we wouldn't be able to get by it probably to get to the carport.
I was getting.
Yeah, if we put a
So if
post
you
there.
do this, you can't make that turn because of this.
You gotta have some
We'd have
support
to
out there.
study it.
You have to
Because
have some-
you'd have to have a column here,
Right, well, we'd have to
okay? So
study what's down there.
but what's bothering me about this deck is the shape of the deck is so awkward to the rest of the house, given the nature of how this house originally got put together.
Right.
A lot of it was very symmetrical. You can kind of see that. And so I think this additional deck is very awkward in how it got attached to the house. And so somehow I'd like to see, if you're going to have to rebuild this thing, now's the time to do it right. And so getting that deck to do that. Now, I can't, without doing some real study, I can't tell you how to deal with the drive circumference. But right now, that's so awkward to everything else you're doing. You know, it doesn't have any rhyme or reason to the trellises and the garden plan and everything else. It's just, in my mind, I know we're talking about a collection of very eclectic pieces of architecture and materials and everything. We kind of gone over that. But the deck does a disservice. If your grand scheme is to really do a nice thing for this property, that deck does a disservice to everything else. So I think the deck needs attention, given the fact that it's deteriorated fairly badly. You've got some code issues with the railings.
Well, these beams, these were steel beams that were
I-
replaced already with a permit.
Yeah, I understand all
Yeah.
that, but here's a chance to do it right. If you're going to make that big effort to do this right, then you ought to make an effort to do that right. So that's my comment. That's not part of a motion, that's just my
Right,
comment.
correct.
Okay, okay, so we've talked about these, we've talked about this. Anybody have any comments about, I know today you were having,
He was right. We weren't pulling it out to here, and we had to drop it back to bring it in line.
so that,
So it wasn't coming from here to here at an angle.
it's from here to
It's
there.
pulled back.
So that's clear, okay? All right, so now we're on this side of the elevation. And we've come across, we've got this set of doors. That's this, we've talked about that a minute. We've got this come across.
Existing.
That's
This is the
existing.
new,
That's the new piece, all of this existing. That's all existing. This is all existing,
this is the stone element that we talked about.
right? That
It's
got
going to run and wrap around the east
these
side.
windows,
These ones we changed from the arch to match all the way across. This one gets changed too. This is a little one way deep in.
right. And these get existing. So do we have any further comment about the items on this elevation?
Are those windows going to be, I mean, a lot of the windows don't look alike because some of them are right on the outside of the wall and some of them are set back in all over the house.
These are, like
Oh,
you saw
these-
them, these are basically flush with the stucco.
Flush with the outside of the wall.
Yeah.
Then a lot of the windows are set back in.
The ones on the driveway side are,
Because of the stone.
because the basement's so thick, there's like two different wall systems. And
And
recessed in back in the 1800s.
so just so we don't lose track of where
Okay,
we've
go ahead,
been.
I'm sorry.
On our last comments, the first floor windows on the south side elevation are acceptable. So I think that's what we're referring
And I
to.
even modified them to be the same
So
style.
we've kind of had that discussion, I think.
Okay.
Let's see. Provide details for the stone wrapping, which he did show.
It's here.
Um,
Put it on the plan.
Let's see, provide a landscape plan, okay, we got to that. Okay, so those are, I think we've cornered most of our comments on the house itself. Let's go to, let's go back here to the east elevation, make sure we put that okay.
Yeah,
Here.
this way.
I'm sorry, okay. So that's here,
This is the window that was centered, made it match the ones I just showed you on the back side.
right, and that's where that window,
That's
whoops,
where that door was removed.
was plastered.
Yeah.
Where we saw the plaster that wasn't finished today.
What is under that area, all that, to the east of the garage, carport? to the east of the carport? What is that area? Right here, I see a vent coming out. I just spotted that. I wondered what's the vent coming out of the wall. What did I see?
On the east side?
Where did I see that?
This is the east elevation right here where that window is going to get changed.
You're looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
that.
And centered better.
Yeah.
What's,
The laundry facilities.
that's laundry. Okay, is there a,
I got a beautiful curved wrought iron with a glass gate going,
is
a
there,
door
there's
going there.
access? That's a door going to
Right.
the outside. But is there, there's obviously access
And the door is
through
going
the
to be
carport.
installed there. We'll open this
There's floor area down there.
Can you put that on the TV so we can see?
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you.
It's talking about this plumbing exiting out the wall. That's coming.
Is that the only access to that laundry
That's
down?
correct.
So you have to go all the way out,
Outside.
outside,
Through the
all the way around the
carport.
house, all the way to the south side?
So, and
No, it's inside from the carport. There's a door that goes into that whole area.
That's what
And
I'm
then there's a
asking.
way out over there.
That's what I
Yeah.
just asked.
Yeah,
So
there is
There
a
is,
secondary
there is
access.
more than that door right there. There's
Yeah.
access from underneath the house.
Yeah, and on the
Carport.
other side, when you get out of the carport on the west side, there's a stair up into the little hallway when you first came into the house. And
So you go down the hallway, through the carport,
yeah,
to the laundry on the east end of the house.
all right, and so we're going to see, what did you say, a gate, a door in here?
Yes,
y-
there's a door.
So there's a door of some sort right here.
Yeah, a beautiful wrought iron glass door.
So there's this little piece that's at an angle,
Floor right there.
okay? And then there'll be a door here, and then that plaster is this piece here,
that's the 1981 wall.
Here's
It's in
this.
the right of way.
with a planter up here. That planter is this thing, okay? Right?
Got it?
Okay, so let's now go back and see if we can craft a motion that gets them an ability to move to the staff hearing officer. All right, so has someone made enough notes to make a motion, or do you want some help? Okay, let's see if we can craft a motion that directs the applicant to proceed to the staff hearing officer with the following comments. That the board finds acceptable the front addition at the
Library.
The library. The front addition at the library, that it's an aesthetically appropriate addition in terms of the staff hearing officer's review of the setback condition. The board also finds that the bay window to the northeast of the north elevation adjacent to the, what is that room?
That's the pool room,
Yeah, the pool room, the
Pool
billiards
room.
room.
billiard room.
Billiard room. Okay, is acceptable. That the board finds that the, okay, so those are the comments for the staff hearing officer. Board's comments with regards to the elements within the public right-of-way for the public works encroachment finds that the floor addition of the element off of the library to be acceptable, that the passage gate and stone arched opening perpendicular to that same element is acceptable, that we in general find that the low planter walls and stone walls within the public right, or within the, is that the public right-of-way? Yeah, public right-of-way are aesthetically appropriate or acceptable with regards to its unique nature to this specific area of the Mission Ridge corridor, in as much as that it has emulated the early development of this area of the Riviera. That the board finds that the existing landscaping within that same public right-of-way is appropriate to the architecture and to the nature of the design of this particular property. The board would request that the applicant provide a landscape plan indicating existing landscaping to remain and/or any changes within that same road right-of-way encroached area along Mission Ridge Road. The board finds that the bay windows located on the west elevation
One more.
Okay, the west elevation as shown on sheet A9, that
This is the 25-foot, so it'd be these.
the three bay windows off of the kitchen and off the dining room, that's the kitchen also, correct?
Yes. Well, that's like a little
Are
bathroom area.
bathroom are acceptable as depicted on sheet A9 of the proposed west elevation, and that the stone wainscot indicated on the same elevation is acceptable, and as shown on the detail, is that on this drawing?
No, I just brought it, I'll put it on there, it's
Okay.
right here. I'll leave
All right,
it.
and that the detailed sketch provided at the hearing was reviewed and understood and is expected to be placed on the final set of drawings. The board finds that the proposed the proposed nook addition on the southwest corner of the first, what are we referring to this? The main floor. The main floor is acceptable in the configuration presented on sheet A5 at 113 gross square feet, is acceptable including the window configuration both on the south elevation and the west elevation. That the proposed deck addition on the south elevation and the 110 gross square foot of living room addition as it is currently built is acceptable, including the window configuration of the south elevation. And that the extension of the balcony as its as-built condition at the southeast level is acceptable as indicated on sheet A5. And that the elements that protrude from the south elevation as indicated on sheet A5 are acceptable. That in general, the architectural elements on the east elevation as depicted on sheet A9 are acceptable, including the new placement of the, what's this level we're calling it?
The basement.
Basement level is acceptable, including the detailed wainscot. And that in general, the wainscot proposed on all elevations on sheet A9 as depicted are acceptable. The board, however, cannot accept as acceptable the existing deck as it's currently configured, nor the staircase, nor the 2 square feet, gross square feet of landing at that deck on the southwest corner of the building, and that given the current condition of the existing deck, that the board would encourage the applicant to consider a redesign that would remove any portion of the deck and/or stairway from the setback area, and that it also would acknowledge the Single Family Design Board's guideline of maintaining a 15-foot differential between the property line and any second-level deck area off of the main floor. The board looks forward to the applicant's submission of the stormwater management plan for the site. The board has made a site visit and has reviewed the 2 major trellis elements, one on the southwest corner of the site and one on the southeast corner of the site, and is looking forward to submission of details and elevations of both of those trellises.
Oh, this one's all detailed on the back of the set, but we can look at it another
Okay.
time.
Where is the other?
The other ones are down here.
That's running right along this promenade here.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
starts
the
here.
trellis at the promenade, and that the applicant requests that the board requests that the applicant resolve the issue of any setback or other requirements of the chicken coop located on the southerly property area,
Yeah, we'll slice it.
and that the board looks forward to reviewing any exterior lighting in any of the landscape area and details for completion of and resolution of the westerly retaining wall and fence at the westerly property line, and that the board also looks forward to completion of any detail for balustrades and railings along any of the garden walls located within the southerly yard space to the south of the main structure. Okay. David, have you been following this? Have we gotten everything we're supposed to cover?
With respect to the modifications, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, and that the entire project return to the full board for the review. Okay, so that's my motion.
I think you nailed it.
So do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we'll see you back once you get all that resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right?
Southwest. Eliminate that
That
little.
goes back to David. This goes back to us. Okay, we're on, where are we at time?
Oh, the stairway.
we're okay.
Yeah, we're
If you
good.
take the stairway a little bit, then it doesn't.
David,
come in
we're
front
at
of us.
410 East Arriaga Street. For the record, can you just read,
You don't have to.
inform us of what's happening,
But
please?
you guys kind of helped us out. so-
Sure, for item 5, 410 East Arriaga Street, the Single Family Design Board is not going to be reviewing this notice project. This project has been referred, to the Historic Landmarks Commission. As the urban historian has found that this, the property is eligible to be a structure of merit. That said, we will close that item and move on to item number 6, 2414 Santa Barbara Street.
Okay, and I will be stepping down.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. So let me get to the minutes. So Fred had to step down from this project so that I will lead with this project at 410 East Arriaga. Do we have minutes from our previous?
Yes, so
Barbara Street, we're canceling Arriaga.
That's right, it's not even on the agenda, I apologize.
2414 Santa Barbara
2414 Santa Barbara Street, thank you. Yeah.
Did we get a printout on it? Did we?
You mean the agenda?
No, I don't think there is. Thank you. All right, thank you. So this came before us last week. So David, do we have minutes from that time? Would you like to?
All right, so at the last meeting, the meeting motion was to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Number 1, the board finds the design and floor plan acceptable. 2, restudy the proposed finishes, standing seam metal roof, dark gray color palette scheme, and the proposed glass garage door for neighborhood compatibility. 3, restudy the proposed landscape plan to preserve more of the existing trees. 4, provide a full landscape plan. Action was carried by Farrell, seconded by Motisha, and there was 4 in support of it. James, Sweeney, and Ziegler were absent. The motion carried.
All right, thank you. Could you share with us what you introduce yourselves and share us what how you address those the motion?
Certainly. Do we have the plans?
Thank you, Joe.
I had 3 sets submitted.
Did you resubmit?
I did.
Let me check on that, sorry.
That's the old set.
Last set. I will be right back.
I always bring it back up. Joe Androlitis with Androlitis Mixon Architects.
Okay.
I'm Nicole Horn with Courtney Jane Miller Landscape Architects.
All right, welcome.
So last time we met, based on the minutes, we had to address the roof, the garage door, the color scheme, and the landscape plan. So we've addressed most of those items. We do have a landscape plan, and we're going to walk through it. But first, I kind of wanted to go revisit the neighborhood and the context of the neighborhood to kind of refresh the board. I walked the neighborhood prior to doing our design, but I walked it again this weekend. Took some pictures and just wanted to kind of go over the neighborhood and kind of highlight some of the architecture around there. I think one of the comments was that this was a traditional neighborhood, and so when I'm walking through it, I tend to have a different opinion of that. I think it's a very eclectic neighborhood that has probably virtually any style of architecture you can imagine spread around the 6 or 8 blocks of homes in the Upper East Side of this neighborhood. I could spend all night going through all the styles of architecture that we had, but I kind of focused on more of the contemporary styles because our proposal leans on the contemporary side, so I wanted to put that in context with what we're proposing here. Some of these are good examples, some of these are bad examples. I'm not supporting any of them, just kind of illustrating a lot of the architecture surrounding the site. So this is a simple plaster house on Pueblo Street, 10 East Pueblo Street. Not the greatest example, but simple forms, flat roof, adjoining, a gable end with tile roof. This one's hard to see, but this one's actually just up the corner from our house on the end of Santa Barbara Street. This represents a lot of the style of architecture with low sloping roofs. A lot of them are concrete tile. This one has open corner windows, which is more contemporary. This one, which is across the street and currently under construction, is a house that was designed by Brett Ettinger. It was approved by this board in 2013 and was found to be compatible with the neighborhood. The house that's adjacent to that house to the north is a Tudor house. So it gives you the eclectic nature of how these houses abut each other. This is a house on Pueblo. It was done, I think, like 3
where
years
exactly
ago.
is your house, and where is
Our house is the gray house.
Okay.
So that house, the Ettinger house, is right there.
Which
The
is
house
okay.
was on the corner, was right there. This is down on Pueblo Street, which is not correctly on here. Where's Pueblo?
Right there.
Right there. So this is a house, I don't think it went to the design review board. This one has a glass garage door, simple forms, more
Yeah,
contemporary.
that probably didn't go before a review
No,
board.
it did not. I verified that. This one's on Quinto. It's kind of a postmodern 80s, house. It has some glass block in it, kind of representative of the style.
Very dated.
This is a house on Pedregosa, was a Cortin house that was a prefab house that was done about 15 years ago. This is a recent remodel just next door to this one, right on the corner of Pedregosa and Garden. This one is very similar to what we had, and this was remodeled with a metal standing seam roof and some concrete, formed concrete walls. So I already showed this one. I believe you guys all are aware of this house on Garden Street, very contemporary house. Approved by ABR. It's in the special district zone. Approved by ABR back in 2003, so I think that was before SFDB was created. This is another example on Anacapa Street. This is an older house, but kind of has more of an Irving Gill Spanish feel. And then this is one across the street. It's got redwood siding, simple forms, low slope roof. So I just want to walk you through that before we begin here. And so what we've done is address the colors and the garage door, and we want to keep the standing seam roof because we think, based on our analysis and review of the neighborhood, that it's in keeping with the eclectic nature of the architecture.
Yeah.
I got 2 mics here. So we've taken your advice on the color scheme, and we've gone with a lighter color scheme. So we're proposing white siding with a metal standing seam roof in this color. This would be the white siding, and then this would be the window color.
Okay.
The stone will match the existing stone that you see in the backyard that I previously supplied pictures of. We've also had this rendered for a photo sim to give you some greater context of what this will look like if and when it's built. This is the existing house on Santa Barbara Street. And then this is a photo sim with the proposed landscaping. And I'll let Nicole address the landscaping once we get to that. If you go further, I have additional handouts here if you guys want to look at these yourselves. This one here. So then this has like kind of a half-screened landscaping, and then we just have the house without the landscaping as the last page. Last page here.
So this has trees and this doesn't have trees?
That just doesn't have the trees, yeah. Just to show the building. We're obviously
Are
going to
those
have
the
trees.
existing trees?
Those are proposed trees.
So you're cutting down the trees that are there now?
We're proposing to have arborists look at the elm trees, and we have a report, and then I'll
Okay.
have Nicole speak to the trees
great.
and the reasoning for replacing them.
Okay.
Other than that, I think that addresses, one other thing was the house directly across the street, which my client could see from the living room, that I mentioned before. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that this board approved back in 2017. This was the house before the remodel. And then I think you're aware of what the house looks like now. And I've gone and talked to my fellow colleagues about the metal roof issue, and I know from what I've heard is the reaction to this roof is the very wide hip covers that are on this roof.
And the reflection,
And
the reflectivity
and-
of it. Because even you can see it here.
yeah. And so this is from what I understand, this is a vented condition, so they needed the extra wide hip. I can assure you that we won't have that detailing. And this roof also sits below eye level on the street. Our house sits quite above the street level, as you can see in the rendering. So you're only seeing a partial portion of the roof. In addition, a lot of that roof, if you look at the backyard rendering, a lot of that roof is exposed in the backyard, and my client would much rather see the metal roof than a sea of asphalt for their backyard. So I will leave it at that, and then I will let Nicole chime in on the landscaping.
Thank you. Can we go to the landscape
can-
sheets? Just slide down a little. So as Joe mentioned, we did have an arborist. Our client hired us, a landscape architect. We engaged Bill Spewak, an arborist, local arborist, to go out and assess the 3 trees in the front. And I have some pictures here. And also Bill's report. Let's look at Bill's report. Sorry I didn't bring multiple copies, but in his report he has a couple images of the existing trees, so we'll just start there.
So they're sick.
Yes, yeah, these are the 2 elms
Yeah.
right out front, and then this is a magnolia.
Is it because of the drought?
He sort of alludes to that. He talks about generally in the last 15 plus years, the drought, and this property formerly had a lawn too, and when they stopped watering the lawn, then they also stopped watering the trees. When the previous owner. So this, I'll put up these images here too. Try to look at this here. This tree right here on the corner is represented here with this existing tree circle. This elm here, and then this magnolia is right here. So sort of the driving factors in removing them have to do a lot with the grading and this driveway. The current driveway you can see in this photo is sort of flanked on both sides by a 48-inch wall, and that impedes a lot of views backing out of that driveway. And so our client would like to lower that wall down to 2 feet, which means regrading both sides and losing these 2 trees. And then this is actually the healthiest of the 2, although they're both in decline, as Bill points out in his report. And the one on the west, sorry, I'll try to use my pen. This tree here is in the most decline. So this landscape plan would recommend 3 replacement canopy trees, 2 parkway trees. There's currently no trees in the parkway. And then a side accent tree. So we're looking at replacing these 3 large canopy trees with 3 new canopy trees, an accent tree, and then the 2 parkway trees. Let me just see if I have some other photos. And just for reference too, these are additional photos of the wall. And I had one with the neighbors here. So this wall here is this existing wall here on their easterly neighbor. So we're looking at reducing the wall to approximately that height, that 2-foot height. Now if I can just show you the plan a little bit. So we're looking at replacing the driveway, sort of revising the stair that leads up to the main entrance, expanding the patio a little bit, and then putting a new stair here accessing directly to the sidewalk. And then this I'm showing just sort of an informal path. It might be pavers. We might actually end up just doing gravel because of the slope. Here we're looking at about a 20% slope once we drop the wall. And on the next page, this is the list here of proposed plants, but on the next page you can see sort of the actual plants. And since this is conceptual level, we have a couple of different options that we're proposing for the tree right now. The main canopy trees, we're looking at Zelkova, which is very similar to the ulmus, which is there now, or possibly the Quercus agrifolia, the coast live oak. The neighbors to the west have coast live oaks in their front yard. And they're beautiful and majestic. I don't know that we actually have room for 3, so that's sort of why we're proposing maybe the Zelkova or possibly maybe a Ruslansia, which we just sort of came up with today. And I also have a rear yard plan. I know this is maybe not as much of a concern, but we're looking, if you can imagine, the rear yard is back here doing some deck. They have an existing gravel yard right now, for lack of a better word. And with the new addition, we'd be adding a new wood deck and expanding sort of a wood deck here, sort of to keep this.
Oh yeah, bring it to the, there we go. keep, sorry. And
Just-
you can use your pointer too.
Yeah. To keep these more sort of more naturalistic materials, there's existing sandstone walls back here and they terrace up all the way to the backyard. So trying to introduce another material that's not concrete, but that would be softer and more organic, such as wood, to match with the sandstone, but still have a contemporary feel like the rest of the house. I think that's it for the presentation, and if you have questions.
What are the 3 trees that are going in that you're proposing? Front yard. What are they?
That's what I was saying, that the species are sort of TBD. I've located them here as giving them 3 options: Acacia stenophila, Quercus agrifolia, or Zelkova serrata. And I think, like I was saying, the oak is a great choice, but maybe we couldn't fit 3. So that's why I'm sort of proposing the Zelkova serrata, which would be similar to the ulmus. You can see the existing canopy is like pretty amazing because they're pretty old trees. But I think if we wanted them to be healthy, we wouldn't really want to plant 2 Quercus that close together. So we're still looking at it. But there would be canopy trees. And in Bill's letter, he supports us using canopy trees as a replacement for the ulmus.
Thank you. So is that your presentation?
Yes.
So anyone from the audience here to speak? I don't see anybody. Did we get any notification?
No public comment received.
So was there a notice put out? Because I know Fred was concerned about that at the last meeting. So-
No, this project does not require noticing per our ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no neighbor was informed about this, so, all right. So,
Why, again, David, why was it not, did it not need to be noticed? We had this question a couple weeks ago that Fred kind of made a point that, hey, we want everything to be noticed because we would have had a room full of people.
The ordinance spells out what types of projects require noticing for single-family design board. So, for example, a new second story or second story additions of above or more than 160 square feet, or total additions of 500 square feet. So there's a whole list of these that we have in our ordinance. This is a 200 and some odd square foot addition. I do understand the board's concern about the aesthetic changes that are happening here, but those are. That's not a reason to notice the project, and that's why the board is here to make the discretionary decision on whether or not the aesthetic changes are appropriate or not.
I think we should push to change that because we have a house here that's totally, it's totally different. The colors changed, the roof's changed, the doors changed, everything, trees. There's not a thing that hasn't changed on this house, and yet we don't have to, you're not required to notice, you're not required to, the people in the neighborhood to know what's happening.
No, not for the these changes here. We could have a project that was proposed to be a Spanish colonial revival project, and I don't know if that would if the board would have as much concern
How do we
about
go
having a notice.
How do we go about changing this requirement? The board would like to have it changed.
It would be something that the city council would have to act on. But if you want to have staff explore that, we can certainly do that.
I think everything that goes in front of us should be noticed. At least to give the neighborhood a chance to at least let them know that something's happening in their neighborhood. I drive up and down the street all the time, and there's a couple of them I looked at today that didn't have any notices on
all right,
them.
I'm taking this apart.
Okay, we'll push it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm bringing it back to the board. Does any of the board members have any questions?
Can we see the color palette that you guys have changed to now?
Here's that on the samples.
Thank you.
Garage door, did you show us the garage door you proposed?
Garage door is on the elevations, and it's not a glass garage door anymore. But there is some glazing shown at the top. I haven't picked the actual door yet. But it's proposed to not be a glass garage door.
It's on the elevation. Lick that thing. Okay. Is this the one? I forgot, Fred's not here to remind me. Is this the house that we're not going to put any gutters around?
No, this is not that house.
We'll have gutters.
We'll have gutters, okay.
That's the other, I know which house you're talking about. It's not this one.
So it's 2 doors up or 2 doors down?
Oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I know which one you're talking about.
Okay. Do we have?
Do you have details of the chimney top, or is that existing?
That's kind of existing. I don't have details, but we'll probably.
You're moving the whole chimney, so it's not existing.
Well,
You're
the
moving the whole
detailing is the
fireplace.
same. Yeah, the whole fireplace
So
is
it's new.
moving. Yeah, it'd be new. I don't have details for that yet. No.
Okay.
Are you done with your questions, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Okay, if no one else has any questions, go to comments. So anyone have any comments?
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the colors. I think the black might be a little severe with the contrast, but I'm curious how my colleagues feel about that. I agree that it's a neighborhood with a lot of eclectic styles, and I still feel that those styles rarely include standing seam roofs. So I appreciate all the research you've done about that, but I'm not going to support that roof on this house. And I think the landscape plan looks good. I don't know if the acacia is a substitution. I don't think if you're looking for a canopy tree, that doesn't have very much mass, and seems like they peter out after like 10 years has been my experience. So maybe the Zelkova or the oak, and the Tipuana, way too big an invasive root system anywhere near a wall. Absolutely not. And I agree to take out the existing elm and magnolia is a good idea because they're messy, invasive, and on the decline. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Jan? Okay. Jonathan?
Well, unlike my colleague, I think the standing seam roof helps it. Where's the standing seam roof to me is a positive, but I like standing seam roofs, and I think they're an upgrade from any other type of roof.
Okay. Anyone?
Let me stick
Sure.
my
Yes.
nose in here.
Joe.
I won't support the standing seam roof. I won't support the standing seam roof because I don't think it belongs in, sorry, I'll rephrase that. I think our standards and our neighborhood compatibility does not warrant it yet. I say yet. Changes, design styles are changing all over town, but I think the standing seam roof on this house does not fit the neighborhood because it makes the house look so much lighter. It's almost industrial. It's a line, and a line, and you compare it to the house that's existing right now, that's compatible with the neighborhood because it was built. They don't match. And I think our neighborhood compatibility would like to have a house there that matches the other houses on the street, and just because we find some that are completely different architecture in different parts of the Upper East does not warrant changing this house to be different than the neighborhood around it. I'm very disappointed that we don't have the people around, that live around this house maybe they don't care. That's what this board was set up for, to make new designs live to our guidelines and the compatibility of the neighborhood. I like what has happened to the landscaping. I like the fact that you're bringing it down and making it more compatible, with the neighborhood and the street.
Okay.
But if you look at the without the landscaping, I don't think it matches the compatibility of the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I want to follow up. It's interesting the pictures you showed, and I appreciate you going through the neighborhood, but I'm kind of looking at these pictures, and I notice it's like a Mediterranean kind of style home there. And then I look at this picture, and there's a kind of a cottage, what do you call it, Cape Cod house there. I like what you did regarding the stone, and I think this is a really nice, it softens the front of the landscaping. I think you bringing that up really brings it nice flow to the house, but I can't support the standing metal seam roof in this particular context. There are some great products out there. There's like slate roofs that I think would work. That would, I think, give it a more traditional feel. And they're gray, and I think you should really encourage your client to explore those options in this particular neighborhood, in this context. Because I've seen standing metal seam roofs, and overall, we have one person on our board that absolutely loves them. But personally, I don't think for this particular case and in this style of neighborhood it's appropriate. Does anyone have any comments regarding the color palette?
I do.
Okay.
Nobody else did.
I think because of the white field, the walls, it's very still. I mean, you had something that was really dark. It was black when the building
gray.
Gray.
Yeah, dark gray.
Yeah,
I think it's too.
Well, it's such a stark contrast. You have white, black, and then gray. And so, I mean, the house before you had really dark gray, and I thought that was not compatible to the neighborhood as well. But I think this is a really stark contrast here. Like my colleague, I think the stonework is beautiful, and
I agree with you.
My comments regarding the landscape plan is,
Sure.
I think that it really works well with the house and with the neighborhood. I appreciate how you've lowered the walls in the front of the property, because I think it's kind of taken away from like how it reads as being a big mass right now. The decision to remove the trees makes sense to me, and having new trees there will look nice. In terms of the appropriateness of the colors, I think that he's demonstrated that there are a whole range of different styles of homes in this neighborhood, so I personally don't have a problem with the compatibility in terms of the colors. So that's my 2 cents on it. Also, I thought it was interesting how you decided to bring in stone in the joints for the driveway. I think that's nice because you've taken the material from the house and kind of incorporated it in the driveway. So that was a cool decision. So nice landscape plan.
Okay.
Can I comment? I'd like to bring, I understand the compatibility issue, but I'm sorry, but I got to bring up Ettinger's job, and that was unanimously approved by your board. This is 10 times more contemporary than what we're proposing, and you approved it next to a Tudor house. So help me resolve that for compatibility.
It was contemporary before.
No, it wasn't. I have a picture of it before.
Well, I'll tell you what.
This is the house before.
That's a well-designed house. And like I said, in this particular neighborhood, in this particular context, when I look at your next-door neighbors, I look at the house across the street, I don't want a standing metal room. It doesn't fit. We define the neighborhood. I'm going to be Fred Sweeney here. We define the neighborhood here. In the neighborhood we're defining in this moment is that this does not have, is appropriate to have a standing metal seam roof. And personally, I've gone through neighborhoods, I've looked at them. They look very industrial, especially at the 16-inch on center. Granted, your fire insurance is decreased. I mean, there's great benefits. I mean, the fire, California is burning up. So it's a struggle. So in this particular case, in this particular house, in this particular neighborhood, in this particular spot, I can't support a standing metal seam roof. Now, there are some other alternative products that have a more traditional feel that I think would work really nicely on the house. Like I said, I love the stone and the way you landscaped it, softened the front of it. And I think the other thing is you're bringing the house back to life because it, it's
I
kind
agree.
of.
But
yeah,
I mean, my
yeah.
client doesn't want a traditional house.
Well, your client's going to live in Santa Barbara. I'm sorry. This is not Oxnard. This is not Santa Maria. This is not
You don't need to raise
San
the points.
Clemente.
I'm
But I'm
trying
just
to make a
telling you.
point here
Yeah. Well,
that
he's got to
you guys
understand.
approved this
Okay. I
next to a
appreciate.
Tudor
I got
house.
it. I got
And
it.
you approved unanimously the metal roof across the street.
Let me make a comment.
Unanimously.
Okay, hold a minute.
No.
Yes.
Hold it.
I
Hold
can
it.
get
It's not a
the minutes.
debate, sir. This is not a debate.
Let me make
Okay.
a comment. Let me make a comment. This house, no matter what's on each side of the house, this house does not dictate a standing seam roof. Does not.
Well, I don't see how you
Because-
can make the argument
Sir,
with the
sir,
one
will you
across the
just,
street.
I'm sorry. It's just let Joe speak.
When we approved this, and I know because I approved it, I was with,
Approved that as well, unanimously.
okay, but these houses dictate a standing seam roof where your house does not.
This house is what was there before. So
I'll say it again, these houses dictate a standing seam roof, which your house does not. And the compatibility,
I'm just looking for consistency. So I'm not seeing it, but
We-
we'll disagree on it. That's fine.
we're not here to chase the word consistency around. We're here to neighborhood compatibility and the house, whether the house dictates whether it should have a standing seam roof. And this house does not, because it floats on top of your what we like.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, can we make a motion, please? I need a motion. Thank you.
I already have the, all right. The board would, where are we?
We don't have any of the information.
We have none of the information. What is this here for? First, I don't have the
We're
sheet
looking
in
for
front of me.
PDA.
Here's a list of.
Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. Project was last reviewed October 29th, 2018. So this is a concept review. So you can accept it for what it is. You can have comments and bring them back to the board with comments.
Okay, the board would,
I'm sorry, Member James. Vice Chair Miller, did you want to take a straw vote regarding the standing seam roof first before making the motion? I'll
No.
put that up there. Okay.
If the motion dies, the motion dies.
okay. The board would like to give this project,
You can even give it project design approval or
project
just
design approval
or have
with
it
the
come
following
back.
comments.
Okay.
That we do not accept the standing seam roof on the project. We appreciate the changes to the landscape, the lowering of the front wall, the incorporation of new trees, and the removal of the dying trees. We appreciate the materials for the driveway and the front walkway and in the backyard. The finishes, you may want to restudy making them a little less contrasting. We approve the garage door you're proposing, so you can return
To the full.
to the full board with study for what I have put forth.
Okay. Can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, that last part was.
What is it?
I'd like just PDA or not, so if you're gonna deny the PDA, then can I just get that?
I heard PDA in the motion.
Yeah, I
so
said
are you clar-
PDA, but return to us, to the full
PDA, sorry.
project design approval.
With the following comments,
With
that
the
we
following
we
comment.
don't accept the standing metal seam roof to soften the contrast of the colors of the, is that what you're saying?
You might want to restudy the
okay.
high contrasting color palette, but the other changes that you've proposed, we do.
Are acceptable.
Are acceptable.
Got it.
That
All
is
right.
my motion.
Got it, all right.
I can second that.
All right, second, okay.
Sorry,
That's-
I'm lost. I'm sorry, I'm lost. So am I. Yeah.
All right.
Can you
Lisa,
read
could
it?
you please reread the motion?
Okay, I have project design approval and continue to, is it consent or full board?
Full board.
Full board.
The board does not accept the standing seam metal roof. The other changes such as the front wall, incorporation of new trees, the front walkway, the backyard finishes. The applicant is to study a less contrasting color palette.
Okay, that's the motion. And you
Okay,
said,
wait, sorry.
okay, that was, we just said it twice, Joe.
No. You may have said it 5 times. I still don't understand it. Sorry. I still don't understand it. We are not giving them design approval.
We are giving it.
We are.
To do it without the metal roof.
And continuing it
I don't
back
see how
to
that's
full
possible.
board.
I don't see how it's possible to give them design approval with no metal roof.
That's the motion, well, that's the motion on the floor.
It
We're-
still has to come back.
It still has to come back with the comment that they have to give it, we don't accept the metal roof.
They have to bring back an alternative.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're giving them design approval.
Yes.
For the rest of
For
it.
the other changes that
Oh,
have been.
only the other thing.
Okay, all right.
Gotcha.
Everything else.
Chair Miller.
Yes.
And they have to study a less contrasting color.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because the metal roof is such a central part of this project and this discussion, I would recommend that you, if you're not satisfied with the proposed roof material, that you do not give this project design approval.
That's what I would prefer.
Okay.
We do not give it project design approval.
Okay.
You may consider continuing this with.
I mean, we're questioning the,
Okay.
we're questioning
Restudying
the
the-
color too.
I mean, the metal roof's inherent to the design, so.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's-
will amend my motion to say that the board would like the applicant to return to us with the following comments already made, and we do not give this project design approval.
Okay.
Return to us for further study.
So
You're right.
is that a 2-week
Yes.
continuance or indefinite
Good.
continuance?
Pardon?
Huh?
2-week or indefinite continuance?
Indefinite.
We
Indefinite.
need a vote.
Okay. Well, that's part of the motion. Come back indefinitely. Okay, and you still second it?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
So the ayes have it.
Okay.
All right. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
That it? Close the meeting. Close it, close it, close the meeting. Hey, don't, they haven't closed the meeting.
Oh, I'm closing the SFD meeting for
November the
tonight,
12th. November the 12th.
November the 12th. Thank you.